Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, I can't tell you why. Seasons spinning round again, the years keep rolling by.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Doolittle.
And I'm Kate Dudding, and we're here with Story by Story.
Sharing the human experience. It's an hour about storytelling, and we have a guest teller with us this afternoon, Siri Allison, who will be joining us in a moment. And we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling before she comes on. And our hope is that we encourage you to come out and join us at any one of a number of storytelling programs that are going to be going on over the next month or so here in the Capital District.
Because there are 3 storytelling groups in the Capital District. There's Story Circle, which is bringing you this show, and that involves a storytelling guild as well as productions at Proctor's and at the Glenn Sanders Mansion, and open mics up at in Saratoga at Cafe Lena and at the Wesley Community up in Saratoga Springs. So that's one organization. Then there's the Interfaith Story Circle of the Tri-City area. And one of their projects is Children at the Well, which is a youth interfaith storytelling group. And the third group, and people are
going in between.
Yes. And our third group is the Riverway Storytelling Festival, which is coming up the first week in April 4th through 10th.
And that's a whole week long of programs in many different community venues here in Albany, and we're looking forward to that. But you may wonder, what's so big about storytelling? Well, you know, storytelling is one of the oldest forms of, if I said entertainment, we'd fall into a bad joke, right? So, but it really is one of the principal ways over thousands of years that we have loved and communicated and taught each other values, directions, all sorts of things. And when it's
past cold winter nights. Yes.
Many, many hours. And they say there's 2 reasons to tell a story.
What are they, Joe?
Well, to entertain and to teach. And I think those are 2 good reasons to think about coming out to hear a story.
Now, in the introduction to a book on Irish stories, the editor said, a story should entertain in the moment and give you memories worth having.
Oh, I like that one. I could use that one. And you might think about that, because stories, in an aspect of that teaching idea, I think stories are generative. There's the story that the storyteller tells, and then there's the storyteller that the listener hears. And often folks will remark that, your story reminded me about a time when I, or when my parents and I, or some other connection. And I think it's the connections that are the best part of storytelling. We've been doing some interesting things with our storytelling programs. What's the most interesting thing you've been doing, Kate?
Well, one of the interesting things I did was tell at Winter Lights, which was put on by the Interfaith Story Circle. It's a program that they've put on, I believe it was their 12th one this year, that most religions have some sort of holiday during the darkest time of the year to give their people hope that once again the dark time will go away. And so many faiths have these stories. And so that was the initial inspiration for having the program Winter Lights. I told a story about the children at the well and how I've been so moved by seeing these youth tellers from so many different faith groups. They come together for 3 months, they learn to be storytellers, and then they put on a performance. And you can tell at the performance, before and after they're performing, that they really are friends. And so my story also was about how I got to know a little bit about 3 of them, a Jew, a Hindu, and a Muslim. And I know that sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, but they truly are friends. And the Hindu and the Muslim have fallen in love with the Jewish stories that the Jewish fellow tells. So.
Well, and what was interesting about that particular performance is that the three young storytellers,
Right.
one was on the card telling, and the other two were in the audience. So didn't you have everything together there?
Well, yes, that was the first time I've told it in front of all three of them, so I was able to say, once there was a Jew pointing to Ben, a Hindu pointing to Reedham, and a Muslim pointing to Kalafala. They weren't sitting together because Ben was telling, Reedham was with the newest group of tellers at Children of the Well, and Kalafala has graduated, is an intern in the program.
Well, and I think you made my point about the connections being an important part of storytelling, because in that example, both the connections among those three friends, but a whole generation or two or even three now have been brought together in an interfaith, interactive way because of the value of stories being shared.
I remember, I just ran across the program, the first time the Interfaith Story Circle met at the mosque in Colonie. It was to hear fourth graders tell Muslim stories. They had been coached by Gert Johnson, who's the head of the Interfaith Story Circle. And one of the fourth graders was Kalafala. Wow. I didn't remember that he had told that night, but I remember being amazed by two things that night. One, that almost every Muslim story that I heard had a Jewish version that I was familiar with.
Right.
And then, of course, I went, well, duh. They're from the Middle East. Of course, the stories would be commingling. And then the second thing was the time for evening prayers happened in the middle of the program. They had tried to avoid it, but had forgotten to take into account we were springing forward. So it had worked. Anyways, there was time for evening prayer, and everyone was invited to the sacred part to take part. And it didn't last like 2 minutes. I think it lasted more like 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm going, and these people do this 5 times a day?
5 times a day.
And I'm going, and it was like a huge bolt of lightning, and was like, the people, the Muslims that you hear are terrorists, going, they can't be religious Muslims, because if you're praying 5 times a day, you can't be, your life can't be consumed by trying to kill people. So,
well, Kate and I have been fortunate in that we've traveled a lot of places without having to go very far because of stories, and it's just an invigorating thing to be a teller. And we do have monthly meetings where you can just show up. We meet at alternate Tuesdays or Wednesdays here at Colonie Library and at the Gilderland Library.
Right.
And if you're interested in learning more about storytelling, we appreciate your coming by, because it's a very, if you'll excuse me, it's a very interesting group of people, and we hear some really good stories from newcomers.
right, but you're not obliged to tell a story. We always love to have listeners, because if you don't have listeners, you're just kind of talking to yourself. But to find out more about our meetings, you can go to our website, story-circle.org, and there's a button called Meetings.
There you go.
And so we meet the third Tuesday of the odd months in Colonie and the third Wednesday of the even months in Gilderland. But if you didn't quite absorb all that, go to the website story-circle.org, and you can just pick up, the next meeting is on February, whatever it is.
Yep. And the other interesting connection that for many of us, some friends and I had a benefit that we did at Cafe Lena in December, and did Christmas stories up in that wonderful place with all its history going back into the 60s, of all sorts of other performers that, quite honestly, I have to say I grew up on. But it was really neat to be in that place and to share those stories, and to get everybody kind of doing some Christmas songs and feeling good. And I did give away a lot of red noses, and that's one of the things I do.
Yes.
So now, Kate, perhaps we ought to do our coming attractions and then bring Siri on.
Okay, that sounds good. I'm the coming attraction.
You are. You certainly are a coming attraction. Don't you look like a coming attraction?
On Sunday, February 13th, on the eve of Valentine's Day, I will be doing a program at Story Sundays at the Glenn Sanders Mansion. That's a storytelling dinner series for adults in its 12th season. Our program is called Love, Laughter, and Life. So it's not only about romantic love, but love of what you do, love of your family,
All sorts of love.
all sorts of love.
Are you going to talk about like other things like chocolate or other kinds of things like that, or just love?
Well, I do love chocolate, but I don't think we currently are planning to
No
have,
chocolate stories. Okay.
have a chocolate story.
And it's you and Claire Nolan.
Right.
And Claire Nolan is renowned in our storytelling circles for one of the best stories about love, about her parents' 40th wedding anniversary.
And she will be telling
will
that.
she?
Yes.
You
yes.
got to hear the story because it's probably one of the best stories about non-romantic love I've ever heard.
I thought it was more of how when you're in a long-term marriage, you can survive the bumps along
good.
the road.
Now, if we're intriguing you with this, remember that this takes place at the Glenn Sanders Mansion on the 13th of February?
Yes.
And that's a dinner series, which is in our 12th season.
Right.
And I think we've had over 6,000 folks show up at the mansion for dinner and stories, and we encourage you to stop by because this is going to be a good one. So if you're looking to take your Valentine out for dinner, this is a nice, easy way to do it.
And you can make a reservation by calling 384-1700.
What else is going on, Kate?
Well, Siri Allison, our guest, and Janet Carter will be telling stories at Proctor's 2 weeks later on Sunday the 27th at 2 o'clock as part of Word Plays, our storytelling at Proctor's. The title of their program is Against the Odds.
Against the odds.
Yes.
So those are probably going to be stories about people achieving goals over the obstacles and the trauma and the other kinds of things. So they'll be highly motivational, I would hope.
Right.
And that takes place at Proctor's in the gallery, which is our storytelling space, just above the box office. It's a great place to listen to stories. It's a great place to tell, and we encourage you to think about coming by. The green market at Proctor's is still indoors, and you can graze the green market. I have a couple of suppliers there. There's a really great winery from down in Armenia, and there's a friend of mine who does peanut butter, special chocolate peanut butter mix that I stock up on when I go to our word plays. So think about that.
Yeah. So you can graze the green market, put your what you buy in your car, come back inside, or just bring it upstairs.
Bring it upstairs.
The gallery is, there's the elevator just in the box office area. Some people are used to taking it downstairs to go to underground at Proctor's, but you can take it upstairs and get to the gallery level. And this is an art gallery. And you can also enjoy the art that's on the walls. And then one wall is completely glass and overlooks the atrium between the box office area and the GE Theater. So it's a lovely space.
It is. And so that's what's kind of happening in storytelling. And we've got a number of other things we want to cover, but you know, we've been talking about storytelling a lot. I think one of us ought to tell a story, Kate.
Okay, I'd be happy to.
I knew you were going to say that. So what are you going to tell us, Kate?
I'm going to tell you a story I looked for when the latest recession started. 18 months ago?
You look for a story at the beginning of a recession?
Yes, that I have learned that when I'm upset, I should look to stories for wisdom.
Okay, let that be another reason to tell a story or
Right.
read a story. Okay.
So this is the story that I found when I was depressed by watching the stock market go. Okay. King Solomon one day called all his advisors to him and said, I am never content. During the happy times, I am always worried about how long the happy times will last. so I never enjoy them. And during the sad times, why, I get even more depressed, worrying that the sad times will never end. So I am never content. But I had a dream last night that there is a ring that will bring me contentment. I want you all to go out and search for it. In 6 months' time, I would like to have the ring. And so that would be in time for our Feast of the Harvest, the Sukkot feast, a few days after Yom Kippur. See if you can find me that ring that will give me the contentment I seek by Sukkot. Well, so his advisors went out and they searched the city they were in. Some of the advisors started talking to the leaders of the caravans that were bringing goods in, telling them, when you go back out, ask for such a ring, and if you find it, bring it, and I will pay you. You know, the king wants it. You will be paid riches beyond what you would imagine for just one ring. Well, no one found this ring. Not in the city, not the people who went out, in the further afield, but the youngest advisor kept on searching. In fact, he stayed up the night before the Feast of Sukkot to just do his best to try to help his king. Well, by dawn, he was in an area of the city that he had never been in before. It was a very poor area, and as he was walking down one street, a jeweler did open up, but it was just a little table in front of this small cottage. But he stopped and told the jeweler, our king needs a ring to give him contentment. So that he will be happy, he will have contentment during both the happy and the sad times. And the jeweler thought, I said, I know. So he went back into his house and brought back just a plain gold band, the kind of plain gold band that the more affluent of the poor people use as a wedding band. But what he did is he carved 3 Hebrew letters on it and then gave it to the advisor, and the advisor said, yes, you're right. This is it. This will do. Here's all the money I have, and come to the palace later today and I will give you more. So the advisor was very pleased, and during the feast, when the King Solomon asked, my advisors, have you found the ring of a contentment that I asked you to search for? They all pointed to the youngest, who said, yes, I have, here it is. And he gave it to King Solomon. And King Solomon looked at those 3 Hebrew letters. And the 3 Hebrew letters stood for the saying, this too shall pass. And the king said, yes, this is what I need. And so he took off a ruby ring of his and gave it to his advisor. Thank you. Now everyone will know that you are a friend of mine. And in its place, he put on this plain gold band. And for the rest of his life, during the happy times when he started to worry, are they going to end tomorrow? He would look and go, this too shall pass. And I will just wait until it does. I won't have to worry about it. I know it's coming, but I can enjoy the happiness while I have it. And then during the sad times, when he started to despair that they would never end, again he would look at his ring and go, this too shall pass.
This is a gesture that we use in storytelling to applaud, because it's kind of a quieter version of that in a small group. Mm-hmm. It says many thanks.
And you know that it's warmed my heart.
Mm-hmm. And it did. And the source of that story?
It's one of the King Solomon stories.
One of the King.
In Alyssa Permain's Book of Wisdom Tales, there's one version, and then I had 2 other versions in stories from 2 books of stories from Israel.
This too shall pass.
Yes, that was the heart of all of them. So, is it time to bring in Siri?
I think it's time to bring in Siri. We'll be right back with Siri Allison. Kate, we're back, and we're back with one of the most enchanting people that we know. Siri Allison is here with us, and Siri has traveled all the way down from Salem, right up in Washington County, and it's winter up there, right?
Oh, it's winter. It's glorious winter.
And we know Siri from storytelling, but you know, where are you from besides like Washington County? I mean, where did you grow up?
North Carolina.
North Carolina, a Tar Heel.
A Tar Heel.
A Tar Heel.
A Tar Heel.
I never would have suspected.
No.
You've lost most of your language right there and left it in the South.
Unless
My sour face is not, is it his accent, not it?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. A little editorial commentary. Siri, I know that you have a background in theater and in acting. When did storytelling kind of become part of the mix of your professional life?
when I went to my daughter's class, because I quit doing theater when my children were born, and I didn't want to be out at night, I didn't want to be touring and all that. So then when she got to be in second grade, I realized this was a way to use theater. I went to classes in the schools for years.
Was that right? So you actually just retooled.
Yes.
Retooled. And so then your work began to be pretty much within the schools, or did you also do some outside storytelling?
No,
or?
it was all in the schools, and I included a little creative dramatics. I would tell a story and bring masks and costumes, and then the kids would act it out. And then I was trying to develop grade level programs that would go with the curriculum. And I thought, once I get these programs developed, then I can go for grants. And I developed these long, extensive programs that no grant could possibly pay for. And then I said, well, I'll take less money. And then the grant people said, no, 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 artists have to be paid, you know, a substantial fee. And then the whole idea just, but the stories were left.
The story. So you actually had kids making up their own stories? Mm-hmm. That sounds like fun.
Oh, it was
really
great
does.
fun. It was
Great fun?
great fun.
And to an extent, you're still doing some of that stuff?
Not really. Summer camps, library programs. I would love to get back in the schools, but I haven't managed that yet.
Okay.
School teachers out there, listen.
Listen into that. and when you...
And Siri has a website. I looked it up.
blog.
Oh, SiriAllison.blogspot.com. SiriAllison. SiriAllison.blogspot.com. And you can find out more information about her there.
And some of those different grade level programs are described on that blog
Oh,
too,
yes,
right?
they
So that
are.
if anybody's interested.
And character development and anti-bullying, I think you...
Well, I hadn't. Bullying wasn't part of it then, wasn't I? Think, but yes, I have a whole
character
series of character
development.
development, a whole series of around the world, a whole series of kindergarten literacy. I'd love to do American history, but I've only done a little bit of that. I'd like to develop that with somebody.
Well, you know, we've been doing a lot of talking about storytelling, and it's probably better if we talk about a story. So what I think we're going to do next, if you could grace us with a story, then we'd like to do a little reprise on the story and provide some commentary, and that would kind of make the message about how we look at story as an art form. And we're glad that you're here with us, because without you, Kate or I would have to do it.
Well, that would be plenty good, let me tell you. That would be plenty
So
good.
tell us a story.
All right, so I put 3 stories in a row, but shall I just tell you one to start with?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Now, this story's from Norway, and despite growing up in North Carolina, my mother is Norwegian, which is where my name comes from. And so the only thing you need to know about this is that in the summer farms, where we would go in the summer, they have these Heidi, like from the movie Heidi, thatched roof log cabins where grass grows on the roof.
Okay.
So that's important in this story.
And the roofs...
The roof is very low. It slopes down to the ground. Oh, not down to the ground. But for example, when we did Easter egg hunts, we'd go up there in the snow, and they could hide an Easter egg in the snow up on the roof, and you could, on certain buildings, you could see that Easter egg.
I'm laughing, an Easter egg hunt in the snow.
Yes.
This was in Norway, okay. Yes.
Or it could have been in Salem, New York, probably too. I don't know.
Well, we'll see this year, yeah. So,
All right. Okay. All right. So Once there was a grumpy, grouchy husband who liked to complain about everything, especially about the way his wife kept the house. One day he came home from cutting hay in the fields and started in again. Supper's not ready. That child is always whining. You mean the cow's not back from the pasture yet? She said, please, dear, don't be angry. I tell you what. Tomorrow let's switch places. I'll go out and cut hay in the fields, and you stay home and take care of the house, and you can show me how it's done. And the man thought, I'd like to take the day off. I'll get her chores done in the morning, and I'll sleep the afternoon away. And so he said yes, and it was agreed, and the next morning she went off, took the sickle to cut the hay, and he began the morning chores. He fed the little girl, he washed some clothes, he put cream in the churn, and he began to churn the butter. He was thinking, this is going well. The baby's happy, I'm being efficient. Maybe it would be more efficient if I went and hung up those clothes I washed so they would have the morning to dry. So he went out and pinned them on the clothesline. Now this clothesline was the sort where you pin them on about waist level and then you pull the rope to raise the line. And he had just finished pinning on the last shirt when, out of the corner of his eye, he saw the pig head up the steps into the house. Oh no, the churn! He ran into the house. Oh, he was too late. The churn had been knocked over. There was cream and bits of butter on the floor, and the baby was playing, and the pig rolling around. And oh, the man chased that pig all over the slippery, slimy floor, and he finally caught the pig, which was so slippery it fled out of his arms out the door, and the man followed. Oh no! The goats were eating the clothes on the clothesline. Oh, there was a bite taken out of each piece of clothing. The man shooed away the goats and hauled up the line and locked the pig in the pen and cleaned up the baby and mopped the floor, poured more cream in the churn and began to churn, grateful that the cow gave enough milk that he had 2 churnfuls. It had not had water or food all morning, and that was important. But he knew better than to leave the churn this time. He strapped it onto his back. And taking the baby daughter by the hand, they went out to get the cow. Now, before she went to pasture, of course, she had to have water. So he led her to the well and turned the crank to lower the bucket. And looking down at the bucket going into the well, he bent over. And the churn tipped and the cream went over his shoulder and down into the well water. Oh, all the cream in the well water. Now they would have sour milk water for weeks, maybe. And by now it was too late to get this cow out to the pasture and still have lunch. But he had a brilliant idea. There was grass on the roof of the house. Now the house was right beside the hill. And if he put a board on the hill and rested it on the roof, he could walk the cow over. And he tried it and it worked. And pretty soon the cow was munching happily on the roof. Congratulating himself on his cleverness, the man went down to make lunch, which of course, as usual, was oatmeal. So he was grinding the oats for the oatmeal when he began to worry about that cow. What if she fell off the roof and broke her neck? He should think of a way to anchor her. Oh, he got a stout rope and he went up on the roof and he tied it around the cow's stomach, and then he put the other end down the chimney, went inside and tied that end around his own waist. And now the cow was safe. So he filled a pot with water and put it on the fireplace and started to light the fire when the cow did fall off the roof. And because she was heavier than the man, he did not anchor her, but she pulled the rope and then him up into the chimney while she hung between the roof and the ground. Now out in the fields, the wife is wondering why she hasn't heard the lunch bell. And she figures she'll go in and see. And so as she rounds the corner, she sees and hears moo. there's the cow hanging there. And so with her sickle, she goes and cuts down the cow, which of course releases her husband inside. And when she goes in, she finds him doing a headstand in the oatmeal pot. After she had fished him out, he had said, "Wife, I have something to say to you. I'm sorry. I did not realize what you have to do every day." And then he gave her a kiss, and he never complained again. That's the end of the story.
You gotta love a story like that, even if you're a guy.
Well, you know, I think that theme, I mean, obviously this is an old story with the churn and the cow and all, but, you know, I mean, aren't there movies like Mr. Mom, and then there's that country song? I mean, this theme just...
My husband and I have our own little routine, you do, I do kind of thing, and I go, now we'll be married we've been married now 39 years.
Ooh.
We just kind of go, oh, it's the you do, I do, yeah, okay, right, we both do a lot, okay, well, we just kind of run to the chase. And
Now, is that a Norwegian story?
It is a Norwegian
It's
story.
a Norwegian story. So did you heard that in Norway or from your mother, or how did you pick that up?
I wonder if I heard it when I was young. It sounded familiar, but no, I found that when I was working on character building stories in, is his name Bennett? Mm-hmm. Those books of...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it rang a bell for me, and I certainly recognized the setting. You know,
Oh,
we went
yeah.
up to the summer.
House.
They cut the hay with the sickles, and they had cows and.
right, because I'd heard the story, but without the explanation about so clear about how you got the cow on the roof, and so that it was always a little puzzle. No longer. Good.
Well, and you know the idea of, we were talking earlier in the show, you know, about the story entertaining and teaching. Well, this story qualifies on those parts. The only thing it didn't really qualify on is I didn't have any place I went where I was reminded of,
Just as well.
a cow on a roof or anything like that. I just kind of stayed with the story. Although perhaps the behavior of the husband was something I might have identified with, but I don't know.
Well, we can all identify with that. Let's just walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. It's
Right.
not necessarily the husband, only in this particular
Right.
instance.
Right. I remember, you know, thinking that, please, I hope none of you. I used to think that truck drivers were just, you know, they were just truck drivers, and then I was taking defensive driving once, and they had a film, and they had this truck driver who was talking about the different road conditions and how when it first starts to rain, that's a very dangerous time because the rainwater brings the oil out of the surface of the road because oil and water doesn't mix. So that can be, even when there's just the smallest amount of water, that could be the slickest time. And he went on with all these other little details of road conditions. I'm going, oh, professional driver.
Now, is your appreciation for the driver the same as it would be for the husband farmer now? Is this where, or aren't we going there?
No, I was the husband farmer
Oh,
in this
okay.
case.
I see. Okay.
And
I'm just checking it out.
yes,
Actually, I'm so intrigued with Siri's stories. I'd like to hear another one.
could we please?
Well, all right. But in the meantime, I have to say, I just noticed these hearts
Oh yeah,
on your tie.
Yeah, this is my Valentine's hide because Valentine is this month. So I thought I'd be appropriate to the occasion.
I see.
So if you have a Valentine story, you could tell it.
Well, let's not throw her a curve.
Okay. I don't have a Valentine story that I can think of, but I did wear the tie.
I see. Well, I thought I might tell this new story I found. It's from the 1920s, the African American community. So it's not what I would necessarily tell as politically correct, but I just think it's a lovely, lovely story. I don't even know if it has a name, but it's about Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Well, this is a story about the beginning of the world and about Adam and Eve, who were, of course, the first people and who lived in just a wonderful, marvelous place. They had 40 acres of good bottom land with seeds that always sprouted and good rich soil and just the right amount of sunny, breezy days and cool, rainy days to make the crops grow well. And the mule loved to pull the plow and the chicken was happy to lay eggs. And Adam and Eve got along so well together. They worked side by side seamlessly and they loved to laugh together. And Eve was an excellent cook and everything was perfect, except for one thing. And that was that when he could find time, Adam liked to go hunting and fishing. And when he was off on these excursions, he'd be gone a day or 2 or 3. And while he was gone, Eve had no one to talk to. Well, of course, there was no one else in the whole world. And when he was gone, she was lonely. And so one time when he came back after being gone 2 days, she said, "Now, Adam, when you're gone, I have no one to talk to, and I'm just too lonesome. So, until you can find some more folks for me to talk to, I don't want you to go off hunting and fishing anymore." Well, now for Adam, this was a problem because next to Eve, there was nothing he loved more than hunting and fishing. So he began to think, what could he do about this problem? He thought and he figured and he studied and he turned it around in his mind, and he was still thinking about it a few days later when he was walking along the road, and who should he see coming toward him but the Lord? "Morning, Lord." "Morning, Adam, how are you?" "Oh, fine, thank you, Lord. You've given us so much. The soil is good, the crops are growing well, the animals are healthy. Eve sure is a good woman. We are very blessed. But today there is just one little problem." "What's that?" "Well, Lord, you know how I like to go hunting and fishing, but, well, while I'm gone, Eve is lonely because she's got no one to talk to. I wonder if you couldn't please, Lord, make some new people. Just make some folks." "Well," said the Lord, guess I could." "I don't see why not." "Well, sure, Adam, I could. When would you like this done?" "How about this evening?" Well, the Lord said, "Let me check." And he got out his almanac where he kept all the weather things he had to take care of, and there was nothing important going on that night. So he said, "Sure, tonight would be fine. Come meet me after supper down by the creek bank where the clay is in the bank." So after supper, Adam went down there, and the Lord had him cut some nice green saplings, and they bent them into frames, and then they pulled up clay, and the Lord set the clay just right on the saplings so that he made folks. He made himself some new children. He made black children, white children, Christian children, Jewish children, Arabs, Asians, old, young, fat, skinny. And when he had finished each one, he set them up there against the fence to dry. They sure look nice, all those different kind of people all set up there. But it was getting dark, and the Lord said, "Oh, Adam, the sun's going down. We're going to have to finish this in the morning. So meet me here about sunup, and I'll finish off these people and put some brains in them." Well, all right, they went home the next morning. Adam was right there at the creek bank at sunup, and he was looking at an empty fence. Those people had just got up and walked off without waiting for the Lord to put the brains in them. And they have been multiplying and replenishing the earth ever since. Isn't that a good story?
I love it. I love it. I have cousins from that group, I think. Yeah, I do.
Well, one of my debates as a storyteller is to say whether they have been replenishing the earth ever since, or to say we have been replenishing the earth ever since.
I think I'd put it on they myself.
Yeah. So you would claim yourself as a direct descendant from Adam and Eve.
Right. That's
no crossbreeding.
No
possibility.
I mean, it just and that was a nice way to end it. It was a zinger.
I know where you were going with that.
I loved it. I think it's man, oh man, good. Now, where did you find that one?
I found that in a book called Southern folklore. It's a big, thick navy blue book. And when we lived in Beacon, I found this book in the library, and it was old and beat up, and I kept waiting for them to de-access this book so I could have it. And they said, oh, we aren't going to do that. And then we moved. And then I was home in Charlotte visiting my stepmother at this point, and there on her coffee table was this book. And I said, oh, Mary, this book. And she goes, oh, somebody gave that to me. You can have it. So now I have it. There it is. There was that story.
So it's not only was a good zinger of a story, it has a mother-in-law corollary. There you go on that one.
Stepmother, a good
Stepmother, a good stepmother.
Very good.
A generous, a kind.
Yes.
My. I just can't get over that. I mean,
A Southerner has got to have a Southern folklore.
I think that story found you. I think we'd have to.
I think that's a good one. I think hear that one again. We will. I hope. Now, I don't mean to misuse you, Siri, but you don't have a third story, do you?
I do.
Well, could I just, while we give Siri a moment to swallow her water, that story reminded me of a story that Kathleen Gill tells about why God put wool on sheep, because they didn't have brains enough to come in out of the rain. And so he had to put the wool on them so that they would still stay warm while they stood out in the rain and got wet.
You got something against sheep? Is this what we're doing?
No, you know I'm a knitter.
Oh, okay,
No.
Well, that's as good an explanation as I've ever heard.
But Kathleen has a wonderful delivery, and that my mini synopsis does not do it justice. But it did remind me of brainless creatures.
Now that's not a segue back to you, however.
Oh,
But
Well, I said I was going to say we have been replenishing.
Right.
I don't.
But-
I don't accept
so
myself
we
on
would
that.
love if you've got another story.
oh yes.
Well, I kind of like that Cherokee story about the strawberries.
Oh, I love that story.
I'm not supposed to tell what it's about. That's supposed to be like,
A surprise?
yeah, but
It's okay. It's a good story. Just bring it on. Bring it on.
Yeah.
all right.
Forget you heard that.
I forget you heard that, right, because it's the beginning, the creation of this unknown item, fruit. Okay. Well, this sort of continues the theme, doesn't it? Actually,
Yeah, it
of the
does.
first story and the second story. Okay. Once a husband and a wife had a fight. He could not believe that she, as usual, made such a big deal out of something that really was not that important. And she could not believe that he didn't understand the importance of this decision. And if he couldn't understand that, at least he ought to see that it was that important to her. She grew increasingly frustrated, insulted, outraged, until she just couldn't stand it a minute longer. She just had to get away, get out of there to think. And so she left the house and walked away on the path that led out of the village. The more she walked, the madder she got. And the madder she got, the faster she walked. She soon reached the village boundary where the path led into the hunting ground. But she didn't care. She just kept right on going. She didn't care how far away from that village she got. Meanwhile, back at home, the husband still could not believe that she, as usual, made such a big deal out of something that really wasn't that important. Well, if it really wasn't that important, maybe they could do it her way. It really wouldn't make that much difference. All right, when she came home, he would tell her that they could do it her way. She had been gone a long time. Oh, he hoped she wasn't at her mother's, or telling all her girlfriends, or crying her heart out under some tree, or having turned her ankle or gotten lost. What if it got to be late and dark and she still wasn't back and he didn't know where to look for her? Oh, he had better go now. He guessed she would have tried the path. He went there first, and yes, it was easy to see she had passed this way. There were many twigs broken, and where the ground was soft, there were deep imprints of her foot. She had been angry to have stepped that hard. And as he went, he could see that he wasn't gaining on her. An angry woman walks fast. So he prayed to the Great Spirit to slow her down. Please, Great Spirit, slow my wife down. And the Great Spirit, who is almost always on the side of peace, heard his prayer. Immediately, brambles sprang up along the wife's path, and usually she would have picked her way carefully, but today she just blazed right on through. She didn't care if her skirt was torn, if she got scratched. In fact, it felt good. So the Great Spirit created an entirely new species of butterfly, pale yellow and lavender, and sent them to dance on the path in front of her. And ordinarily she would have stopped and stared, but today she just brushed right on by. A new birdsong didn't work, nor a long stretch of muddy path, nor blackberries, which she loved, growing on the path beside her, out of season. She just wanted to keep on going. Well, behind her, the husband was getting desperate. Please, Great Spirit, slow my wife down. The Great Spirit rose to the challenge. All along the path in front of her, a low, green, mounding plant appeared with white flowers with small yellow centers which hardened into little green knuckles which softened into ripe red berries. She stepped on them. She couldn't help it. They covered the path in front of her, and when she stepped on them, they squished and released this odd, entrancing fragrance. She had never smelled that before. She bent down and examined these berries and tasted one, and oh, she had never tasted anything like that before. And she suddenly realized how tired and hungry she was. She sat down and began to eat them one after another, but slowly so as to savor their peculiarly delicious taste. Oh, she wished she could share these with her husband. Oh, she wished she hadn't left. Oh, but he could be so infuriating, but oh, she still wished she hadn't left. Maybe she could bring some of these berries back as a peace offering. Just at that moment, she heard someone coming down the path calling her name. It was her husband. Wife, wife, I love you. We can do it your way. Oh, husband, I love you too. I'm sorry I left. But come, taste these berries. She gave him one, and when he tasted it, a look of wonder came over his face. And he sat down beside her, and they began to just eat berries one after another. They were contented now, exhausted, relieved, so relieved to be on the other side of this terrible fight. And when they could eat no more, they dug up some of the plants and carried them home and planted them beside their house. They wanted to have always with them a living reminder of the end of that day and of how sweet it is to make peace.
And I just had strawberries for lunch.
In the middle of winter?
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. A grocery store had some special. They weren't locally born. So was that one you heard growing up in North Carolina?
No, my connection to that one is I used to babysit. And this lady who had a new grand house built had a kitchen with strawberry everything. Strawberry wallpaper, strawberry cookie jars, ceramic. And I complimented her kitchen, and she said, it's good for a family kitchen to have strawberries in it. And I never knew what she meant. And then when I read this story, I thought, I bet there's a connection there, whether she knew it or not, to this theme of strawberries.
It might have just
and families.
distilled down to it's good to have strawberries.
Yes.
But somewhere along the line, somebody knew the story.
Yes, that's what I think.
Well, it is a Cherokee tale that's told, and I'm told that in the Cherokee traditions that they serve strawberries whenever they have a special occasion, like at a baptismal of a child and stuff, so that they are commemoratives in many ways, which is a nice tradition to have, I think, in terms of how one celebrates. But
Yes, it is.
there's a good book that Joe Bruchac has published called First Strawberries.
I've seen that book.
That he co-wrote with one of his Cherokee friends and illustrated
Gail
with...
Ross,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Because I've heard Gail Ross tell that story that you told.
And illustrated wonderfully well by Thomas Hooker, or one of the really neat kids illustrators. And I've given that to kids as birthday gifts and my granddaughters and stuff, because I think it's a great story. Great story. I love the story. Well, gee whiz, Siri. We've done our kind of other patter here. Is there anything about storytelling you want to talk about or share about, things that you've seen or observed in the local scene? This is an opportunity to share an observation.
Well, my observation is that the storytellers in this local scene are phenomenal, and that we are very lucky, blessed to have you two to produce and encourage and advertise and develop and draw out those of us who like to do this. I mean, this place wouldn't be the same without you two.
Well, that's really nice of you to say, but we have a lot of good talent to draw from for the things that we're able to put together.
Right,
But thank you for that.
And when I came up with the idea for a storytelling open mic in Saratoga, I said to the group of Story Circle, and is anyone out there who would like to organize this? And 3 people
That's right.
by email raised their hand, if you will, and so off that happened. And so that was, yes, we do a lot, but others are right behind us.
Yep, there's a lot of...
But Kate, you even won a national award for that, did you not?
Yes, I won the
Well-deserved.
2008 Oracle Award for service in the Northeast region. Yes.
Yeah. So the rest, on behalf of all the other storytellers, let me thank you
Well,
both.
thank
Well, we didn't, that wasn't really what Joe was pumping for.
I know
No,
it
no, no.
wasn't, but that is my main observation of this area and the storytellers.
But let you and the listening or the viewing audience be encouraged both to come to one of the venues that we describe, and also to check our website,
Story-circle.org is about the Storytelling Guild. And then storycircle@proctors.org is about the events that happen at Proctor's. And some of the buttons lead you back and forth too.
But there's a lot of, and we'd like to be a supportive community as storytellers and story listeners. So, and I think we've got a pretty good community established. So,
What I would say, interestingly to me, about storytelling as opposed to theater, storytellers are, but each one is different. So I mean, it's so clear that each person has their own style, but and they, as a group, are extremely encouraging and kind of quiet as people, and then you get them up on stage and boom! The theater people are loud to start with, and there's this competition for the part, and it's got its own charm and energy. I mean, I love the theater, but storytelling has this generosity that's a bit more open than theater people.
Well, it might be because not a lot of us try to make our living off of it. So that might be part of it. But yes, by and large, I found the storytelling community, which I came to 15 years ago, very welcoming, generous people I want to emulate.
Well, plus you can do it on your own. You don't have to have that part in that play in order to be. You're freer. You're much freer as a storyteller, and you can start late in life, and you can start where you are. You don't have to have all this training and all that business. So
and you don't have to get 40 people together.
That's right.
But I love the theater.
Yes, yeah. I don't mean to denigrate the theater. No,
Right.
I love it too.
It's a continuum that some storytellers are like the telling around the kitchen table. Natural raconteurs is what I think of them as. And then you get to somewhere in the middle, there are storytellers that do wonderful voices and dramatic gestures. And though your cow, moo, was pretty good. And then you get some very theatrical tellers who've clearly memorized their stuff, which is fine. But most storytellers know the story, know the heart of the story, know the scenes, and tell it to you, and haven't memorized it, which is good because I am terrified of memorizing things, and of getting halfway through and going, well, I'll back up and I'll, with memorizing, there's always that fear. But if you know, well, then this scene, the point of this scene is that the farmer got the cow up on the roof. So get the cow up on the roof somehow, and then okay, and then he ties the rope around him. So you connect the stories by scenes.
And I think one of the other things that's also learned about storytelling in groups, at least in the performance venues that we produced, we like to have two storytellers, because I think for both the audience and the tellers, it's more fun to play off a little bit off each other. Even if the stories might be completely different, there's still a dynamic there. And that doesn't mean you can't do it alone, but it kind of is a interactive art. There's no doubt about that.
Right. At one of the conferences that I went to, Nancy Donoval said, in theater, everyone on stage is pretending to be someone else. The audience is really pretending they're not there. And the people on stage are constrained to say the playwright's words. Whereas the storyteller is there. It's talking to you. Most storytellers want to see their audience's faces. And when somebody goes, "Oh, that happened to you," you can say, "Oh, that happened to you. Oh, yes, you know where." You can react, and you're you, they're them, and together the story brings you together. And the magic happens somewhere in between. Whereas in theater, the magic is sort of all up on stage, and the audience is just kind of peering in through that fourth wall.
Yes, but the actor, they know.
Yes,
they
I know.
feel that thing there.
I
that
know,
magic
but
is the same magic.
It would be so hard for me. I've never been an actor, but it'd be so hard for me to just have to use my ears and the sides of my eyes to gauge the audience.
There's another whole circle of thought about the whole idea of public narration in terms of some things like Hal Holbrook doing Mark Twain, and other kind of characters. And I've often thought that would be something that I might like to try, although it's pretty daunting to get into that thing. And one thing I have to say is that you're definitely not daunting as a teller. I mean, I love to listen and watch, and we've had so much fun here this afternoon with you, Siri, kind of gracing us with tales that really went all over the place from the standpoint of their sources. And remember that, brought us joy, traveled to Norway, to North Carolina, to down home, all the way back in time, places that you couldn't get on the radio or TV very easily.
That's true. Can't drive to.
You can't drive to. And that's pretty much where we've traveled. And we've traveled there with you, our viewers, and a good storyteller, and two good friends who like to talk and bring stories to life around this part of the world we call home.
Thank you for joining us this month, and we hope you'll find us again next.
And thank you, Siri, Allison, for joining us and participating and adding so much to this hour.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
It goes all my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown. The moon rolls through the nighttime till the daybreak comes around. And all my life's a circle, I can't tell you why. Seasons